Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. Continuing our travels this week, it's sunshine, sand, and sustainability. We're going to learn about lifestyle and legacy investing in beautiful Belize, and we've got an awesome guest today on the Real Estate Guys radio show.
Hey everyone, it's Brad Sumrock, and I bought my first apartment building 22 years ago. And I know you've heard about our big events with music and lights and celebrity speakers, but we have an event coming up that is for somebody who is ready to get started in 2024. It's an in-person experience only, and it's a limited number of attendees. So it's more of a workshop than a seminar. So you're going to learn how to underwrite a deal, because it's not just enough to find them, you got to be able to analyze them. And you're going to learn how important it is to manage these deals, vet and hire and oversee management companies, and key performance indicators. Let's make 2024 your year to learn how to master finding and analyzing and managing profitable apartment investments.
Join the Apartment King, Brad Sumrock, February 17th and 18th in Dallas, Texas at Weekend to Wealth. To get Brad's 2024 apartment forecast and the details about the event, just send an email to forecast@realestateguysradio.com. That's forecast@realestateguysradio.com. Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms, and with me in the co-host seat is our financial strategist, Russell Gray.
Hey, Robert.
It's week 3 of our tour around, we won't say the world, but we're getting further out every time. A couple weeks ago, we were in Scottsdale with Ken McElroy, just sharing what we saw for 2024. If you haven't heard that, you probably should, because Kenny's pretty smart when it comes to paying attention to what's going on. Last week, we were in Memphis, Tennessee, getting to hang out with our friends Terry Kerr and Liz Brody, learning a lot about what's going on in Memphis. This week, one of our favorite locations in the world is also a real estate market that's been quite intriguing. It's time for us to revisit beautiful Belize.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's interesting is this isn't just a geographic round robin. If you really think about it, it's a bit of a demographic round robin. Kenny, of course, is a commercial real estate investor, meaning he invests in big commercial properties, uses commercial financing, pays attention to what's going on at the macro level to understand the financing side of things, the employment side of things, picking geographies that he thinks are going to be favorable, and obviously residential real estate, mid-level, affordable housing, apartments, that's his space. And so he has a perspective. Terry and Liz, they're in the very affordable, blue-collar, single-family home market. They've been working in that market since forever. And of course, that market's very dependent upon the shipping business, which is a real barometer of what's going on in the economy with FedEx. And so that's kind of interesting. When you go to a place like Belize, it's a resort property. It's a resort town. And so the demographic, the reflection of what the economy is doing isn't necessarily based on what's happening locally. It's based on what's happening around the world. And obviously affected by things like restrictions or the lifting of restrictions on travel after COVID. That had a big impact on resort. When people don't feel as prosperous, they maybe don't vacation as much. At the same time, the affluent continue to be a little bit more resilient depending on where the weaknesses in the economy may be. So when you put all those 3 data points or those 3 check-in points on a plot and start to really think about what's going on in the world, a tour like this gives us an opportunity to really look at it from a lot of different angles, from a lot of different perspectives. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what's happening today as we revisit with our boots on the ground guy here in Belize.
As a real estate investor, sometimes folks are really clear. They know exactly what they're good at, what they want to invest in, the markets they like, the demographics they want to serve. But we get a lot of folks that listen to the show that haven't quite figured that out, which is why we like to bring you a variety of different things. If you look at the Belize market, there's opportunity in agriculture and development and land banking and those kinds of things. But you're right, the resort opportunity and the fact that people vacation there is some of the strongest economic data. And it brings up something we call lifestyle investing. And that is, rather than just picking a market and the property based on pure ROI, there sometimes is more to it than that. And in a place that is beautiful with sunshine and palm trees and white sand, sometimes it does blur the line a little bit. But you do want to understand that the lifestyle investing component is a portion of the return. We like to get down to Belize from time to time and just see the difference. When you go to a place every day, a marketplace, you see the changes kind of around you. But when you go, every few months or every year or every couple of years, you really see the changes. So we're going to check in today and see what's new and what might be an opportunity in the beautiful country of Belize today on the Real Estate Guys radio program.
Need help with your real estate investment portfolio? Check out the resources page at realestateguysradio.com.
If you love real estate and have always wanted to own your own business, listen up. The Real Estate Guys and their panel of experts want to teach you how to go full-time fast in the real estate syndication business. These next few years may go down in history as one of the best times ever to acquire investment real estate. There are deals everywhere if you know where to look and how to assemble the resources. The Secrets of Successful Syndication seminar will show you how to make big money doing big deals from a team of experts that have syndicated projects totaling more than $1 billion. Don't wait for someone to give you a raise or create a job for you. Attend the Secrets of Successful Syndication and learn how to build a team, raise capital, find deals, and make full-time money in 6 months or less. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events. All the big players use syndication as a way to diversify risk, optimize profits, and earn big money. You can too. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events.
As I speak, inflation is robbing you at a rate north of 10%. Last year, the number one zip code that Mid-South homebuyers offered income property to Real Estate Guys listeners in appreciated by 21%. To harness that spread and protect and grow your wealth in the current economic storm, you need the 2 decades of experience in renovation and management that Mid-South homebuyers brings to their investors. Every home Mid-South offers you will have brand new components, a new 30-year roof, and a high-quality renter, all in a price range under $150,000. Their empathetic property managers will use your ROI as their North Star, while the lack of repairs on their totally renovated properties contributes to their almost 4-year average renter stay and 99% occupancy rate. Learn about their lifetime occupancy guarantee and total 1-year maintenance guarantee by emailing midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. That's midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, this is John Asraf, and you are listening to The Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, now in our 28th year of broadcast. Well, it took a lot to twist my arm and get me down here to beautiful Ambergris Caye, Belize, but we're in Belize with our good friend David Kafka. Hey, David.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Great to see you. Always good to come to Belize.
Great to see you.
First of all, how are things here? It's high season. It seems really busy and awesome. What's been going on?
Oh, it's busy. We can tell that it's picking up like it's never left off before after, the cerveza sickness.
It was crazy, right? A market like this that is mostly tourism stopped completely. There were just no flights for 6.5 months. And you think about the permutations of that, right? Hotels that had to shutter and send their staff home. And now 6, 7, 8 months later, some of those people have moved, some have found other jobs, and just quite the story. And so one of the things in a market like this is you watch the tourism numbers. And of course, we've been involved with Belize for many, many years. People who hear the show or maybe sick and tired of hearing us brag about Belize. But I first came down here 19 years ago, and so much has changed. And one of the ways we keep the pulse is the tourism numbers. And even though it does feel busy, it seems like tourism isn't quite to where it was pre-COVID.
Yeah, it's still not quite there. We do expect it, though, by the end of this year to be back to where it's always, we're getting these record numbers every year. So we'll probably hit the 500,000 overnight tourist visitor this year.
Well, you bring up an interesting point because the overnight visitor is someone who comes here and is going to stay typically for several days, average time in Belize about 8 days. But there's also a bunch of people that come into the country, over 1 million every year if you count the non-overnight tourisms, which of course is the cruise ships.
Correct. And the cruise ships are back full force. So they're pre-pandemic levels, and they're just calling Belize home and getting new ships. We have new airfare, airlift, and so that is going to project us to the over 500,000 overnight tourists.
You know, one of the distinct things you have to watch if you're looking at any international market, so whether you're thinking about buying a property in Mexico or Switzerland or anywhere, is airlift. If guests can't get there, then there is no uplift. And I remember we invested pretty early on in a project in Mexico, and I've had several Mexican real estate experiences, some really great and some not so great. And the one that wasn't so great, they kept promising, we're going to have American Airlines and we're going to have Copa is going to come in, and
right.
nothing. And so it was a 4.5-hour drive from the border at San Diego, and that just didn't do it for real estate. One of the things that Belize has been blessed with from the beginning is good airlift. So you have major airlines flying here every single day.
Yeah, exactly. And then the new one is a new destination is JFK.
Yeah.
With JetBlue. So that is new. We're excited to have that. And, you know, we hear the rumors of even more coming and even from Europe. They're wanting to get those European visitors here without having to stop in the U.S.
That's been an impediment. Even though a great number of Europeans come down, they generally have more time off. They take longer vacations. But to come here, you either have to go through Cancun or Miami or Dallas. And that just makes for one more reason people would say, let's go somewhere else.
Exactly.
So we'll be looking for those direct flights for sure. Well, one of the reasons I like to talk to you is that you're a rare guy in this market, because you have one of the largest brokerages here. You have agents in southern Belize. You have folks on the island, kind of the big picture. And as you know, obviously I know a lot of real estate folks here, but they usually just specialize in one market. And your perspective is not just the business you do, but the business your agents do. So what's happening there? Who's coming? Who's buying? What's changed?
Yeah, we're still seeing majority U.S. people. The Canadians are coming back, although they have to pay, you know, that 40% tax, so to speak, because of the dollar. Everything here is sold in U.S. dollars.
Right.
So they have to pay a little bit more, but they are coming back. They're tired of the cold weather and all that. And 2022 was a record year for us.
Yeah.
We sold over $85 million that year. Last year was a little bit less.
Okay.
But we're seeing prices go up. So our average price went up by about $50,000 from 2022 to 2023. So even though we're not selling as much, inventory is a little bit down, especially in places like Placencia, Hopkins, and then some areas in Ambergris Caye as well.
Well, globally, right, we know that real estate volume is down. A lot of that's driven by interest rates. You don't really worry about that too much because there's not readily accessible financing in Belize, which is something we'll talk about in a minute. But we're definitely in the shadow of what happens in the U.S. and Canada when we come down to Belize. And so a lot of folks want to have a second home, a vacation place. Some people look at the opportunity in agriculture, which we'll talk about before we're done, and commercial and those kinds of things. But we're definitely seeing that the prices are going up. And although prices have kind of inched up over time, this seems to be just a little steeper than in the past.
Yeah, correct. I mean, I'm seeing like Placencia beach lots used to be 200. Now they're like in the 350 range. So things like that, they're really going up. Not just going up, it's if you can find them. The inventory is low.
Yeah.
So we're trying to create inventory, you know, by developing some parcels and things like that. But the demand, time on market is sometimes it won't even hit the market. We just put it out there to a few people and it gets snatched up.
You know, like any market, there's ups and downs and supply and demand ebb and flow. But I would say on average, coming here for nearly 2 decades, this is always a seller's market. There's not been a time, even post-COVID, even in the Great Recession, where prices came down substantially. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, because it's a seller's market and it's a cash market, there's no distress. So while somebody might have lost their job in the U.S. and will lower the price to get it sold quick on their property here because it's the only thing they have left. Other than that, it's not a distressed market. So people can weather the storm, let it go out. And also, as you know, money just changes hands. It goes from one set of people to another set of people. So those people are going to come here now. We don't even see that big of a drop, even during the great financial crisis. I know you always say, I think the Caribbean was down in the 30% range, and we were down, in the single digits.
Yeah. What happened in 2007 and 8, and definitely things slowed down. But in 2009, the Caribbean was down nearly 20%, and Belize tourism was down less than 2%.
Right.
So that's another part about this market. Is it's not a spring break market. It's not a cheap travel market. Flights are expensive. Here's my frustration I'll share with you since you're listening. I came down from Dallas, and the direct flight round trip was about $800 coach. Looking at the flight from Denver to Belize, it goes through Dallas and connects to the same exact flight, and that round trip flight was $400. So the direct flight cities are sometimes priced not the way we would think, but based on demand. And when I first started coming to Belize, there were only 4 direct flight cities, and now there are more than a dozen. Yes. So it definitely is outreaching more, and people are learning about it. When I first was here, the most popular T-shirt in the gift shop said, "Where the hell is Belize?" Right? They don't even have that shirt anymore. People are starting to figure it out. Now, you came down here more than a dozen years ago, and tell us that story, because it's fascinating how you found Belize and chose to make this your home.
Yeah, I was trying to get away from taxes and insurance and just the high prices, and I wanted a little bit of, I'm not a big government person, and Belize is a small government. And so I just wanted to check, a couple places in the Caribbean. And I picked Belize mainly because it was English speaking. And that just, once I got here, just the feeling that I had, it's undescribable, but a lot of people feel the same way. And they can't explain it. And I'm like, I know exactly how you feel. So when you're here, it's just, even though we work a lot, it still doesn't seem like the rat race.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And this is evasive and hard to describe, but Belize gets under your skin. You feel it when you're here. And it's why I believe any investor should go to see a property before they buy it. Now, I know folks will buy sight unseen, and I get that if you know the market well, if you trust the agent and so forth. But Belize is what sells Belize. And it's a variety of folks that come here. One of my favorite things about Belize is just the varying degrees of people. I mean, you run into all kinds of people down here.
Yeah, and no prejudice, right? It's just everybody's so friendly. Good morning, good afternoon. And we say it to a North American, and they're like, "What are you talking to me for?" But it's just common here. So the people is really what sells it.
Yeah. So let's talk about real estate opportunity. Obviously, we think you want to come here. And shameless plug, before we're done, we're going to invite you on the Real Estate Guys Discovery trip, because we're going to come back and bring a bunch of folks to show them the market. We've been doing that for 18 of those 19 years. But when you look at investment opportunity, I am used to looking at things like BLS.gov, where I can see the variety of jobs in an area. I can look at in-migration and out-migration. I can look at the big employers. It's a little different down here. It's a little more anecdotal, although there is certainly tourism information. Tourism is less than 30% of the GDP. So what else makes up the GDP? What else happens in Belize?
Yeah, we have manufacturing. We have agriculture. So we do export a lot of things, sugar, bananas, citrus, things like that. And then we have the tourism.
Yeah. And on the island here where we are, this is primarily a tourism market, although you have fishermen and you have support businesses and those kinds of things. But it is a place where tourists come. And I think the typical opportunity over the years has been the couple that comes down to Belize, a little bit on the aggressive edge because it's not a place everyone's heard of. They fall in love with the place. They say, gosh, we should get a place down here, and we'll come down, and when we're not here, we'll rent it out. And for the first 4 or 5 years that I was coming down, that was who was here. There were no brands. There were no big developments. There was none of that, which was quaint and cool. We're now seeing that there's a couple of industries in which brands are coming in. And the first one's a big clue, and that's the real estate brands. All the international real estate brands are here, so that's a clue. And the other is the hotels. When I first started coming to Belize, when you moved to Belize, there weren't chain hotels, and today there's a bunch of them. So speak to that part of it.
Yeah, we have, the Hilton was the first, and then we had the Marriott. We have Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville and Best Western.
Yeah.
So they're definitely seeing it. They figured it out, even though, we talk about on the field trip why they took so long.
Yeah.
They figured out that, if the airlines are coming here, they better get here.
Nobody in the hotel business wants to go first. So within the first announcement, within a year, the second announcement, and so on. And it's good to see that happen. But also, in a little place like this, you want to be careful about overdevelopment. And so I think that's part of the constraint on supply. And when you have a constraint on supply, whatever it might be, and yet demand is persistent, you're going to see the price increases we talked about. One of the things I love about Belize is just how real and gritty and authentic it is. It's not like, Disneyland or even some of the Hawaiian islands that just feel almost too good to be true because they're constantly manicured. I mean, we're sitting here and we have airplanes going over and golf carts going by and motorcycles and people going off to tours and the beautiful water and all that stuff. So it is a lifestyle. And we talk about lifestyle investing. So rather than have you think pure ROI, I'm going to invest just because I can make money. Nothing wrong with that. That's what we talk about most of the time as the real estate guys. But down here, you have people that aren't necessarily after ROI number one. It's important that it performs, but they're really more about that lifestyle and legacy.
Yeah. I mean, today it's 80 degrees outside. And more, I'm hearing people are tired of the cold. And so we're seeing a lot more snowbirds.
Yeah.
They're trying to come down here just to get away. It's 80 degrees here with a nice wind, a nice breeze going, partly cloudy. And North America, it's, below zero.
Yeah. So met a guy yesterday from Buffalo, New York, and he was escaping what was happening there and was thinking about extending his trip here. And why wouldn't you want to do that? But I will say this. It also occurs to me, watching folks over the year, that sometimes a real estate investor, not just a person who wants a second home, nothing wrong with that, but if you're a real estate investor, and if you're listening to this show, you probably are, sometimes you can get kind of lulled looking at the white sand and the palm trees. So talk about your investors that come down, because you specialize in selling houses and investment property, and you really do have the folks that are second home buyers, but you have investors too. So what do they need to know so they don't get distracted by the dolphins and the sea rays?
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely an easy market to get in when you fall in love with it and all that. And it's a little bit harder to get out. What I always tell people is slow down. My job is not really selling. My job is educating.
Yeah.
So I need to educate you about the market, about each market you're looking at, what it takes to buy here, what it takes to live here, schools, things like that. And then, and only then, you really need to kind of see what's for you. It is not a pure ROI market like we talked about because there's no debt or there's no financing. So it's more of a lifestyle. It's more diversification. It's getting some money offshore and just having a place to go to, your bolt hole, as you say, or Simon Black, your plan B.
Yeah. And that is important. It's one of the reasons people invest. On the Discovery trip, we'll talk about the 3 pillars, the things that drive folks here and why the market has been so strong for so long. But I think there still is opportunity. We haven't lost out on opportunity. If you're thinking about investing anywhere offshore, there's some things you have to pay attention to. One you already talked about, and that is currency. So when I bought property in Australia, I had not only the market risk and learning the drivers in that, but I also had to think about currency exchange because I earn US dollars and I'm buying in Australian dollars. The same would be true if you went to Canada. And we talked about the Canadians' tax, if you will, because their currency's down a little bit. Here in Belize, and you've mentioned this, but just so people understand, all real estate transactions are in US dollars.
Correct.
All hotel stays are in US dollars. But local commerce happens in the Belize dollar. Now, the Belize dollar isn't a hard currency, but it's got a really simple math problem. It's 2 Belize dollars are 1 US dollar, and it's been that way forever.
Yeah, exactly. And most places, if not all places, except for one taxi guy, will take, U.S. dollars or Belize dollars.
Yeah.
If you go to the ATM, it's going to give you Belize dollars. But everybody takes U.S. or Belize. And we also take, most major credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, Discover slowly coming back, or American Express.
Well, and you have some insight into that because in addition to owning a real estate brokerage and having homes in 2 different big markets in Belize, you also own a retail store with a couple of branches. So talk about that part of it, because I think for some folks there might think, I might be looking not to retire, but to go somewhere where I could either be a digital nomad, and we have a bunch of those down here, or maybe find a business to start or a business to buy.
Yeah, there's always businesses to buy, restaurants, bars. There's a bakery in Placencia for sale right now. So there's definitely opportunity. You can just walk around and just see opportunity. And you're my mentor. Like you always say, find a problem and then find a solution.
Yeah.
And that's opportunity.
One of the examples I love, when we first started coming down here, there were 2 cappuccino machines, and the restaurants that had them barely even promoted it. And I remember being down here with 2 couples, one from Seattle, one from San Diego, and it's early morning, and they're saying, hey, where do you go to get a good coffee around here? And I point over to the counter where they have one of the big pots with the Folgers in it. And I'm like, well, guests of this hotel, there's your coffee. And they're going, no, can I get a macchiato? Can I get I'm like, no, there wasn't. Well, now we have a dozen awesome coffee shops on the island. They just opened the first drive-through coffee shop, right? So eventually entrepreneurs find a need and fill it. We won't spend a lot of time talking about your retail business, but folks that come on the trip, we'll go show it to them. And then one of the great resources, David, is for people is if you are thinking about starting a business, moving here, what does healthcare look like? What about schooling for my kids, communication, any of that stuff? Has been here and lived here for more than a decade, so that's why I love to have you on these trips. Plus, he knows all the markets here, not just one market. Let's talk when we come back about a really unique opportunity that is starting to grow in Belize, and that's agriculture. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Live nationwide, you're listening to the Real Estate Guys. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com.
All aboard! Registration is open for the Real Estate Guys 22nd Annual Investor Summit. Imagine spending more than a week with like-minded investors, world-class educators, and real-world professionals. Returning in 2024 is the editor of the Gold newsletter, Brian London, real estate developer Beth Clifford, and the rebel capitalist George Gammon. Back with us in 2024, sales legend and best-selling author Tom Hopkins. And joining us live and in person for his 12th Investor Summit, Ken McElroy. Plus 2 brand new faculty members we can't even mention yet, and a lot more. It all begins June 13th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Visit investorsummitatc.com to get all the details and reserve your spot. This transformational week is like no conference you've ever attended. Go to investorsummitatc.com and make plans to spend a week with the Real Estate Guys, Ken McElroy, Tom Hopkins, and an all-star faculty on the 22nd Annual Investor Summit at Sea.
Having trouble finding deals where the numbers make sense? Invest in an asset class that delivers cash flow to you in good times and bad, and where most of that cash flow is tax-free. I'm Dave Zook. Many of you have heard me speak at Real Estate Guys events or heard me on their podcast. My team is a top 5 ATM operator in the country, and right now accredited investors can make cash flow returns well into the double digits and get huge tax deductions. For your free report on this lucrative asset class, email atm@realestateguysradio.com.
Hello, this is Dave Lendiger, co-founder of RE/MAX International. You're listening to the Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio show. Thanks for tuning into the program. If you've ever wanted to get involved with bigger real estate deals, either passively investing in them or actually putting those deals together, then you need to make plans to join us for the Secrets of Successful Syndication. Happens in late March in Dallas, Texas. More than a dozen speakers, lots of resources, and time to get your questions answered. To find out more, just send an email to syndication@realestateguysradio.com. Syndication@realestateguysradio.com. or go to the website at realestateguysradio.com and click the button that says Events. We're in beautiful Belize talking about lifestyle and legacy investing with David Kafka. Before we get back to that interview, it's time to play Real Estate Trivia, your chance to win a prize by knowing today's real estate trivia question. When you hear the question and think you might know the answer, send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. We'll need your name, the answer to the question, and your physical mailing address, because if you're the first with the right answer, you're going to get Rich Woman, an awesome book by our friend Kim Kiyosaki. That can be yours if you know today's real estate trivia question. Last week on the show, we were in Memphis, Tennessee. We asked this. There are 6 official songs of the state of Tennessee, and 5 of them have Tennessee in the name. What's the official state song that does not include the state's name in its title? Well, the answer is Rocky Top. The other 5 songs are Tennessee, When It's Iris Time in Tennessee, My Homeland Tennessee, My Tennessee, and you knew it was coming, Tennessee Waltz. Here's our real estate trivia question for this week. The Belize rainforest is home to the largest flying bird in all of North, Central, and South America. Name it. Yeah, name the largest flying bird. You can find him here in Belize and in some other countries. If you know, or you just want to guess, send your best guess to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. First person that gets it right gets this awesome book, Rich Woman, by Kim Kiyosaki. That's today's real estate trivia question. We're in Ambergris Caye, Belize, and I'm here with David Kafka. We're talking about opportunities in places outside the U.S. Belize isn't the only place there's opportunity. You just bought some property in an awesome part of the world, but it is a great way maybe to start investing offshore. I've had the opportunity to own in a lot of different countries, and you have that learning curve. And here, it's pretty simple because, as you mentioned, English speaking, and all the contracts are in English. When you're sitting with someone and they are considering a purchase, it really seems very much like what they're used to.
Exactly. It's pretty much just like owning property in North America. Full title ownership, contracts are in English, so it's not hard. It's an easy process, and we guide you through that whole process, the closing and all that.
Now, there's one caveat I would tell most folks about investing in a country they're not familiar with, and that is disclosure law is not the same, right? In the U.S., it is incumbent upon the brokers involved in the transaction to make meaningful disclosures. That's not true here, except when you work for a major brand like you're with RE/MAX. Everybody knows RE/MAX, but there's other great brands here. Keller Williams is here, Century 21 is here. We got all kinds of real estate brands here, and those brands do have the same type of disclosures and so forth.
Yes, they do. And if they don't and they get in trouble, or somebody, talks to the head office, you could lose your franchise.
Yeah.
So, to me, it's not worth it, right? One sale is not worth it when you're doing millions and millions of dollars a year.
Well, people do love the familiarity of a brand that they know and trust, which is, I think, important just on every level. Well, let's transition over to the oldest use of real estate in the world, and that is agriculture. This is a place that is not that densely populated, but has a lot of land, and it's very conducive to certain crops. Can you talk about agriculture and how that's become more of an opportunity here?
Yeah, there's raw land you can buy. You can buy farms that are already up and running. Depending on what you want to grow, depends on, where you buy. We have coconuts, we have sugarcane, oranges, citrus, all kinds of citrus, cacao, hardwood trees. So if you think about it, we can pretty much grow it.
There's a big company that doesn't come from Belize, but from a nearby country who came in a few years ago, and they really figured out how to harness sugarcane and process that. And it's been amazing to watch some outside ingenuity come into a place that was maybe a little devoid of farm science and practices, and watch the yield come up. Because a lot of the farmers here, they raise their family on the farm and they're able to provide, but it's tough. they don't have the same efficiencies. They aren't able to grow the yields that other folks are, and yet they don't really have the resources to reach out and bring those folks in. You've been working on a project where that exact thing's happening, and it's pretty exciting because those kinds of efforts, sure, they create produce that sells, and that can be a return for an investor, but they're also bringing a whole new angle to the livelihood of these farmers. And just tell us about how that's working.
Yeah, we have a cacao farm, and the demand is much greater than what we can produce right now.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll buy cacao from a smaller farmer. He might have 1 acre, 2 acres, or 5 acres, something like that. And then we'll buy the raw bean from him. It's green. And then we will dry it, ferment it, and all that ourselves and sell it to our buyer.
So cacao, if it's not obvious, is how we make chocolate. And in fact, you've been kind enough at the last Real Estate Guys event to bring some of those little sample chocolate bars. And it really is, in this place, you can go from bean to bar. But I think probably the biggest market is selling the cacao to other places that aren't just local.
Exactly. We sell at our farm, we sell to like 4 different continents. So Australia, we have Taiwan, and of course U.S. and Canada is who buys our stuff.
It's interesting to see how it is fragmented. You know, there's 5 or 6 of these, we call them micro chocolatiers. They aren't big production houses. It's handcrafted, and it's one of the coolest parts. If you're in the airport ready to go out, you got an hour before your flight, you're going to find lots of different chocolate products. And a couple things about it. The chocolate here is really good and really dark and expensive. So it doesn't cater that much to the Belize citizens. It's not, I mean, you'll watch a Belizean go into a store and they'll see a chocolate bar that's made in Belize, and they'll see, you know, an American brand, and they'll gravitate to that because it's got a lot of milk and a lot of sugar in it. But the audience for that dark chocolate is amazing. The folks that will pay the price and have that palate, if you will, that is a growing segment.
It is. And we have 2 types of chocolate here. It's the commodity chocolate, if you will, and then what we grow is the fine flavor cacao.
Yeah.
So that's where the chocolatiers want to make, you know, their bonbons and their bars and things like that.
Yeah. So not the only crop, but it is a crop. You know, as you mentioned, citrus is all over here. Oranges have been a big produce for a lot of years here. They have a thing in Belize called greening, and that is a disease actually that keeps the oranges from turning orange. Now, you think, how could you sell an orange that isn't orange? It stays green. For juice and pulp.
Yes. And every orange juice that you drink in North America probably has some sort of amount of our concentrate, if you will, in it. It's a very high quality, very great tasting juice. And it's exported, you know, a lot to, you know, Europe. And of course to the U.S.
Yeah, it's astounding. I remember the first time that I had rented a condo here for a week, and I had a bunch of families, 4 bedrooms, and we did one of the provisioning services where you reach out ahead and order your stuff, and we ordered a dozen oranges. And it was the last day of our trip, and there the oranges are sitting green, and I said to my brother-in-law, well, I guess we're not going to eat oranges. He goes, I'll make up some juice. And it was the best orange juice I'd ever had. This before I knew about the green part of it. But the other thing about agriculture is big business. It's industrial grade business. And it's difficult for a mom and pop investor or even a small consortium to go find the right land with the right conditions, learn the farm soil and science, bring in the right equipment and manufacturing. I mean, it's a big deal. So that's why little guys normally can't compete. But in your project, you have a way for accredited investors to compete, if you will. How does that work?
Yeah, so we have one of the largest farms in Belize, Cacao Farms. It's 515 acres, and it's a syndication, like what you teach. And we bring along, you know, accredited investors, and we're actually getting our Reg S right now to where we can take foreign investors.
Wow.
And so we have a lot of people interested in it. It is a legacy investment. Because we have, you know, hardwood trees, we have lemongrass, and we're just trying many different products that don't have a short shelf life like a banana or citrus.
That's a really good distinction. There are definitely calories that are needed, right? We're in the calorie crunch and everyone's seeing grocery store prices. And with agriculture, as long as the crop's right, distribution is the key. But when you grow lettuce, from the time you pick it, you don't have a lot of time to get it into the hands of the people, right? But cacao can last a while. That's got a good shelf life. It's not forever, but it's for a while. Same thing with the hardwood. Hardwood's fascinating because it takes so much time. And over the years, you've heard us talk about those kinds of investments. But imagine, a tree that's going to take 25 years to yield. Most people don't have the foresight to invest 25 years ahead of time, right? We say the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time will be today. But there's a lot of the investments that are those like legacy investments. You think about, well, I'm going to put some money into this particular project, and then I'll see my first return in 25 years. That's a hard sell, but it does work great for people that have family trust, for people that have IRAs, for people that just want to leave something awesome to their kids.
Exactly. And what we've done is we've combined it with cacao. So you get some cash flow every year until the harvest of the hardwood trees.
Okay.
And then also with the lemongrass. The lemongrass is actually doing pretty well. We're going to probably have about 15 acres, and we just started it last year. So we're already going to work at just doing our own distilling. We were going to sell it to the spice farm, but I think it's growing so fast, we're just going to go ahead and distill it and make our lemongrass oil, essential oil right now. And it's just a phenomenal, it's a sustainable, it's giving back. It's just a great product.
Awesome. So many things to talk about, so little time, but couple of opportunities for folks. Certainly, they can come join us for the Real Estate Guys Belize Discovery Trip. We do that trip a couple times a year usually, and it's fun. David's almost always on those trips because, one, he knows the market from a real estate perspective, and two, he's lived here, raised a family here, can answer all kinds of the questions from folks. Some folks come and they just are looking for an offshore investment, that, plan B. But some folks, a surprising number actually, end up moving here. So that's full disclosure, that it seems like about every other trip, we have someone who comes to the trip who didn't plan to move to Belize, who decides to move to Belize. So you should know that happens. But before we're done today, we'll tell you how to come on the Belize Discovery Trip. And then you do a trip specifically to look at the farm. Take us through what that trip looks like.
Yeah, so you come in. We kind of modeled it a little bit after the Real Estate Guys trip. We kind of meet and greet. And then the next day we go to the farm and we tour the farm, then we have lunch, and then we go to a Mayan ruin and have dinner. And then the next day we kind of show you Placencia and just kind of talk questions and meet with people and go over the whole market.
Yeah, and if you're interested in the farming sector and you don't think either Belize or cacao are for you, this still might make some sense because I know your partner's been really working on the cacao side of it for a long time, figured that part out. You guys are adding distribution, and there's just a lot they could pick your brain on. If you come on the Discovery Trip, we're going to spend our time in Ambergris Caye because it's the top real estate market here, show you opportunities that are commercial, retail, nightly, yearly, right? There's all kinds of things that you might consider. But David will be here, and we'll also talk some agriculture and syndication and all the fun stuff. To get all those details, just hang out with us here, and after the break, we'll tell you how you can join us. Hey, David, you've been coming down here for a long time. After that, you moved down here, then you started a business here. Now, obviously, you have several businesses here. Knowing what you now know, what would you say to someone who is thinking about Belize as a possibility?
Just come on a trip and just get your knowledge. We can't tell you where to buy. It has to come from you by going to visit each area. But you'll learn more on that trip than I'd say 60, 70% of the real estate agents in the country. So start with education and then just act. Education for effective action. I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah, love that. In fact, just the other morning, I met with our mutual friend, Dennis Kay. Dennis is the most famous real estate agent in Belize, and I say that because he was the guy on House Hunters International all those years ago that would take the clients through. He did another show in Canada called Live Here, Buy This. Just the nicest guy, but he lives in France, and he works selling real estate in Belize. Anyway, he showed up, and I reminded him of his testimonial to us because he came on the trip. I remember walking in and going, Dennis, why are you on this trip? I mean, you sell real estate here. He goes, well, I figured I'd learn something from you guys. At the end of the trip, here's his testimonial. I learned more in 3.5 days with the real estate guys than I've learned in 8 years of living in Belize and selling real estate in Belize.
Exactly.
And I reminded him of that, and he goes, you know what, Robert, that is absolutely true today, and if you want another testimonial, I'll give you one. So good stuff. That's our strong arm, and to come hang out, really just come hang out with David and I in paradise. The worst that can happen is you're going to have an awesome time in a beautiful place. The best that can happen is maybe you'll find your next opportunity. So we'd love to have you join us. And we'll eat pretty good. Yeah, the food here is amazing. The food in Belize, all organic, no pesticides,
GMOs.
right? No GMOs. So come on down and check it out. David, thanks for your time today. Great stuff.
Thank you, buddy.
You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Real estate investment advice right in your mailbox. Sign up for the free Real Estate Guys newsletter at realestateguysradio.com.
Hey, it's Robert Helms. Thanks so much for listening to the show today. I want to personally invite you to come see an amazing real estate market that combines excellent cash flow, offshore diversification, and what we affectionately call lifestyle investing. Come join me from July 19th to the 22nd in the beautiful country of Belize. The Real Estate Guys have been bringing investors to Belize for more than 18 years now, and our discovery trip is designed to show you the market like nobody else can. Sure, Belize is breathtakingly beautiful. The people are wonderful. And wait till you taste the food. But the real opportunity is the real estate investment potential. There's all kinds of opportunity in Belize when it comes to real estate, including both long and short-term rentals, commercial and retail triple net properties, business opportunities, land acquisition, development, agriculture, and more. And as the only country in Latin America with English as its official language, it's easy to understand the law. Property rights are strong, and contracts are in English. And in the top tourist market, a unique situation exists where demand for rentals continues to outstrip supply, creating a compelling environment for investors. So come see for yourself. Join me July 19th to 22nd in Ambergris Caye, Belize, as we study the market, learn about the sustainable drivers, and tour lots of beautiful real estate. And like all of our field trips, there are no properties for sale during the weekend. Rather, you'll meet lots of local providers that will help educate you about the market so that you can follow up with them after the trip if the market is interesting to you. You've heard about Belize on the Real Estate Guys for all these years? Now come see what all the excitement is about. Plus, we'll have lots of time over meals and activities to talk about all things real estate. To get the details, go to the website at realestateguysradio.com and click on Events, where you'll find the Belize Discovery Trip. Once you register, you'll get information about our group hotel rates as well as travel details. So join me in Belize, July 19th to 22nd. It's a beautiful country with lots of amazing possibilities, and the only thing missing is you. Go to realestateguysradio.com under Events, and I look forward to seeing you in beautiful Belize.
Hi there, this is Danielle DiMartino Booth, author of Fed Up, an insider's take on why the Federal Reserve is bad for America, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Guys show. We're glad you're here today, and we're glad to be in Ambergris Caye, Belize. Hey, if you're interested in where the Real Estate Guys are going to be next and where you might come out to see us, go to the website at realestateguysradio.com under Events. There you'll see listed a whole bunch of live and virtual events, some that we produce and promote, and some that we're invited to speak at. It's just a way to broaden your knowledge. So come on out to Real Estate Guys event. We'll look forward to shaking your hand there. Well, my goodness, there's a lot of new stuff to talk about going on in beautiful Belize.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a market that we've been involved with for a long, long time. We got very interested in the run-up to the 2008 financial crisis, and the benefit of being there was really borne out going through the 2008 crisis because the values maintained pretty well. They weren't credit dependent. We learned a lot about the concept of Plan B. At that time, a lot of people were concerned about the direction of freedom and opportunity and the economy. And some people like our friend Peter Schiff are still very worried about that. And so there were a lot of people back then and even today that are interested in having that plan B. We've been talking about real assets ever since that. And so if you think about something like gold, gold doesn't provide a yield. And yet people store wealth in it because it tends to be resilient in terms of retaining its relative value. And so you mentioned at the top of the show, and David brought it up during the interview, the idea of moving some money offshore, if you're a United States investor, putting some equity someplace where it isn't being pumped up by credit markets. And so it's maybe less bubbled equity. It's more resilient in the face of fluctuations in the credit markets. And then having wealth that is outside of a jurisdiction where it's a little bit safer. It's sequestered. You know, the United States is the most litigious jurisdiction in the world. And if you're a doctor or somebody in a business that, business person that maybe is in a business where things can be a little litigious, it's nice to have some wealth somewhere kind of outside the system, outside the jurisdiction. When you layer on top of that the lifestyle component and you put a price tag on that, I mean, if you think, you got a $1 million property and that you would normally have to pay $5,000 a week to rent it and you get 6 weeks a year, then all of a sudden you've got a pretty good ROI just based on not having to pay for that vacation time because you're in your own property. And the rest of the time, it may be generating a decent return. Nobody's going to roll out of bed and go, wow, that's a great cash on cash return. That's not really what you're buying it for. You're buying it for a place to save your wealth. You're buying it for a place to protect it from a jurisdiction, maybe have a plan B, add the lifestyle component. So there's a lot of reasons why people enjoy this kind of investing, but you do have to think about it a little bit differently.
We can talk about Belize on the radio all day long, but you got to come see it. If you're interested in figuring out what Belize is all about, hey, the worst that happens is you enjoy some time in paradise, and we'd love to hang out with you. All you have to do is send an email to Belize Field Trip at realestateguysradio.com. Belize Field Trip at realestateguysradio.com. You'll get the dates of the next trip. Not only our discovery trip is the real estate guys that we do, but also the cacao farm and that trip. So just send an email to Belize Field Trip at realestateguysradio.com. Hey, I found a great way for you to go to 4 different real estate markets. Check this out. You can go to Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, and Fort Lauderdale. If you join us for the 22nd Annual Investors Summit at Sea, it's going to be an extraordinary event. We got all kinds of cool people coming, and that should include you.
Yeah, the Summit Forever. I mean, this is our 22nd year, and it's just a way to compress timeframes. If you really think about what this business is all about, whether you're a syndicator, you're a real estate investor looking to make connections with people that can provide deal flow, whether you want to be in a room full of people that are like-minded, that are trying to solve the same problems you are, whatever it is, you want to get in the right room and you want to be in a position where you get to form those deep, lasting relationships. And so people travel around, they go to conferences, they go to meetups, they try to connect on LinkedIn or whatever social media, and they try to build these relationships. And the thing is, you can get more done in 1 week, probably closer to 10 days by the time you're all in, but you get more done in those 10 days than most people get done in 10 years for a fraction of the cost. If you really think about how much money you spend registering and attending and traveling to all these different conferences. So ROI, if you're using the event strategically, is just off the charts. And I think that's probably the reason why we get so many people come back year in and year out. And it's exciting to be back on a cruise ship. Haven't been on a cruise ship in several years because of the whole COVID debacle, which is now mostly over, I hope. And so it seems like travel has opened up quite a bit. We're obviously talking about that on today's show. So it's a great opportunity to get in some travel, see some new markets, meet some new people, get away from the daily grind and think strategically and get a lot of different people's perspectives from a lot of different markets and entrepreneurs that are involved in a lot of different businesses and really find out and get your thumb on the pulse of what's going on in the world economically and from an investment perspective. And this year, being a red-hot election year, I think it's going to be maybe one of the most interesting times to get together with people and talk about these things.
We always have attendees from all over the planet, which is awesome. Obviously, Russell and I will be there. David Kafka will be there, so you can hang out with David. Plus, Kenny McElroy, George Gammon, Peter Schiff, and the sales legend Tommy Hopkins, Brian London, and lots more. All you have to do is send an email to summit@realestateguysradio.com to get more information, or go to investorsummitatsea.com realestateguys.com. Big thanks to David Kafka for sharing his enthusiasm and information about beautiful Belize today. Next week, we'll talk about a couple of very different investments, and you'll meet a real estate professional that has raised over $1 billion. And the week after that, a living legend. Founder of RE/MAX International, Dave Leniger, will be with us. Couple of awesome shows coming up. Until then, go out and make some equity happen.
This episode of the Real Estate Guys radio show is brought to you by Paradigm Life. Powerful cash management strategies using life insurance. Learn more at beyourbank.com. Mid-South Home Buyers. Low-cost, turnkey cash flow properties in Memphis, Tennessee. Corporate Direct. Asset protection strategies for real estate investors from attorney and Rich Dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Find these and other great companies under the Resources tab at realestateguysradio.com. To learn how you can expose your product or service to the Real Estate Guys audience, call 888-489-7723 extension 4. That's 888-489-7723 extension 4. Or use the feedback page at realestateguysradio.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Real Estate Guys Radio Show.